Blue. It's just a great show. Listen in on Sunday mornings from 8 to 11 a.m. on KPFT in Houston.
90.1
KPFT FM HD2 Houston.
KPFT.
Hello, Houston. Live from the KPFT studios, it's the Houston Hour with Houston historian and TV's Mr. McKinney and Heidi Vaughan of Heidi Vaughan Fine Art. Now, sit back and relax as we bring you an hour of all things arts, entertainment, history, and Houston happenings. Here's Mr. McKinney.
Hello, Houston. It is Wednesday, August 5th. Mr. McKinney here with Mr. McKinney's Historic Houston, coming to the KPFT airwaves with my awesome birthday co-host, Heidi Vaughan of Heidi Vaughan Fine Art. Say hello, Heidi.
Hello, Houston. Hi, Mr. McKinney. Well, it's not just any birthday. This is a big deal for me.
Oh, well, happy birthday to you.
Today, I'm 60. I can't believe it.
You know, it is a big deal, and you were so kind. You had a really fun event on Sunday, and a lot of us gathered and just celebrated Heidi Vaughan and also your buddy Josie, too. So
I got to thank Josie Kaplow, who is an appraiser who works with me through my gallery, and Monica Melgar, who's a fantastic artist who also works with me at the gallery. She manages my Artsy and my website.
Yeah, and you know, this is going to be all things women on this show. We are really celebrating, as we celebrate Houston's birthday month. Houston's 190 years old coming up August 30th. So you can celebrate Sunday, August 30th on your own. You can also celebrate over at the Heritage Society at Sam Houston Park on Saturday, August 29th, courtesy of J.J. Gonzalez with Texas Land Law. So we're grateful to J.J. He's also on the board of the Heritage Society at Sam Houston Park and serves as the honorary chair for Happy Birthday Houston's 190th. So come on down to the Heritage Society on Saturday, August 29th. Celebrate with Three Brothers Bakery, amazing cake, and also some free tours on board the Houston History Bus, and also free tours of the homes over at the Heritage Society at Sam Houston Park. Okay, 1100 Bagby Street. More information online, heritagesociety.org. Well, all these birthdays going on, we also have a very special guest, a gift. Sculptor Lori Betts actually unveiled a statue of the mother of Houston, Charlotte Baldwin Allen. This took place over at the Julia Idison Library. It was a big deal. And what's so great about it, we're going to have Lori on the show coming up on the history side, so make sure you stay to the end of the show. Well, Heidi, who's going to be on the art side? Because she's a buddy of yours.
Well, I'm super excited about that Lori Betts sculpture. I can't wait to talk about that. But Avisheh Mohsenin is an artist that I have represented since the year I opened. I absolutely adore her. She is an artist who's from Iran. She lives here in Houston, like everyone that I represent. And she's going to be talking about what she's up to with her art.
I love that. Photographer extraordinaire and so much more. And Heidi, what about the arts calendar? Because the month of August, what have we got going on?
You know, it seems like everything slows down in August and people are traveling, but ho-ho, there's some great stuff going on in Houston, especially this week. Over at Project Row Houses, it's Floyd Newsom's Summer Studios. I have been to this in the past. It's super fun. On August 8th, they'll have an opening community market featuring art installations from 6 emerging artists. There'll be live DJs and all kinds of fun stuff over at Project Row Houses, 2521 Holman Street.
And what about the performing arts side?
On the performing arts side, you know everything great is going on right now at Miller Outdoor Theater. Mm-hmm. This is when Miller Outdoor Theater really shines. Tonight is Houston Shakespeare Festival's The Tempest, produced by the University of Houston. It starts at 8:15. Tomorrow, August 6th, is Comedy of Errors. On August 7th, again, another performance of The Tempest, one of my favorite Shakespeare plays. And then on August 8th, it's Comedy of Errors. If you love Shakespeare, this is your moment, and it's free.
And more information at milleroutdoortheater.com. Well, and Comedy of Errors, too. We did that over at the Alley Theater in the early 2000s, and it was a smash hit. So, folks, it's a great introduction to Shakespeare for those who are new to it. And both Heidi and I adore Miller Outdoor Theater and the work they do over there. Well, Heidi, you know what? We're not going to waste any more time. We got a big birthday show coming up for you and for Houston's birthday month. So we're going to start with our very first guest.
Thank you, Mr. McKinney. Well, it is my distinct pleasure to welcome our arts guest today. This artist is a very good friend of mine, someone who I adore as a person and her work as well. And it's her second time to be on the show. Avisheh Mohsenin, welcome back to the Houston Hour.
Thank you so much. What a nice welcome. I love it.
So you have had 3 solo shows with me at my gallery. We're going to be talking about your work in general, which is always available through my gallery. But I want to step back a little bit and talk about you for our listeners who may not be familiar with who you are. You are an Iranian American, but you're actually born in France.
That's right.
Where were you born?
So, hi, everybody. Hi, Mr. McKinney and your listeners. Thank you so much for having me here. It's very exciting. Love the space as well.
Yeah.
I was born in France because my parents were graduate students, so they had their children there. But we're always to
Which
go back.
city?
Grenoble. It's in the Alps, so they're skiers. They chose the area for the promises of skiing, and they did a lot of that.
And not everyone knows there's skiing in Iran also.
There is skiing in Iran,
Yeah.
and they grew up skiing, and going back, they skied too. So I grew up skiing in Iran as well. But after their grad school, they went back to Iran, and it was just at the heels of the Iranian Revolution in the late 70s. So I grew up during the revolution, the ensuing Iran-Iraq war. I did all my schooling there, including college and 1 year of grad school.
And you had to wear an abaya, a burqa.
Yeah, chador in Farsi, or you don't cover your face, but you cover your hair. You need to have a modest outfit, so you couldn't wear a skirt and a top or jeans or something like that.
How'd you feel about that?
You had to have like a coat.
Yeah.
For different seasons, different material. Well, obviously, it was very limiting. As a teenager, we had to play around it. We defied it a lot by bringing in little things in fashion. Like, I don't know, tight jeans were in fashion in the 80s. We would try to wear those things under the coat, let's say. They call it manteau, like, the French word for coat. If the wide-legged pants were in fashion, we would try to do that. And we were always trying to push the scarf back as much as possible. Having
On
all
the
sorts
playground
of,
at school, did you play in the chador?
Well, it's not a chador. So chador is like the clad, the big piece of
The big one.
sheet that kind of covers you. No, this was really like a long coat, modest
Yeah.
colors usually
Yeah.
at the beginning, and then it became much more defied by the women over the years. So it became more colorful, shorter. So it's a jacket, kind of a long coat, and a scarf. So the scarf you would tie under your chin, and then over time it was more trendy to not tie it and throw the 2 ends of the scarf over your shoulders. So it became something of a fashion and also a means of pushing the limits over and over.
But did you have that on while you were like playing sports?
Yes, unless the sports were, the sports were separated, so it was not co-ed. So volleyball, basketball, obviously swimming, all of those were separate. But if you were skiing, for example, which is hard to separate, the 2 parts, they separated the resort at the beginning, and that didn't work because they didn't know how to ski. They couldn't come up the mountain. The
Fashion police
and the police stuff. So we would just go in the other part of the slope. They had put like lines in the middle of the slope. Or we would just disguise. When I was a teenager, it was easier as boys, and then just ski with our dad and had picked up boys' names. And
You're kidding. I didn't know that.
I was Arash. My sister is Jasmine. She was Sam or something like that.
Wow.
And then we would come in the line, and if they would catch us, they would be like, you're a girl. I'm like, no, we're not a girl. But, that became harder as we were older, not like preteens or teens.
Well, I do think
Yeah.
an important part of your story is the fact that you and your sister and your mother spent some years visiting your father in prison.
Yes. So the Iran Revolution was it was a revolution. So you had a lot of factions, of political factions and ideologies. It was a left-leaning revolution because it was toppling a monarchy. So you had the Islamic left, but you also had the secular left. And the more educated, the students' movements, I think they were mostly on the secular left part, very much inspired, obviously, by the 70s socialist ideas of equality equality, all those, the Russian doctrines of socialism that didn't end up working. But then the revolution got hijacked by the Islamic factions that were participating for many reasons. Not the scope of this interview. But my father, yes, as an economic student in Iran and then later a graduate economics PhD student in France, was very much active into helping changing the country into a more equal and non-monarchy country. So,
which was a threat.
Well, when Ayatollah Khomeini took over and kind of put his hands on the revolution and claimed it, they did 2 years of cleaning up any dissidents. So they went through massive killing and arresting of the dissidents for many purposes, to clean up house as they were establishing their power and also to just show who the boss is. So yeah, all the non-Islamic leftist activists were many killed and many in prison. My dad spent about 4 years in prison, and luckily to this day I don't know the details. Was he that active? Was he that important that he wasn't killed? Because the guy that he was arrested with was killed. So yeah, we never really talked about those years, because when he came out of prison, it was time for bonding back. We were older, 3-4 years older, so we needed to rebond with our father. But yeah, we spent the 4 years skipping school sometimes on visitation days to join my mother and my grandmother to see him behind, it was those telephone things behind the booth kind of.
And I heard you say that he was never depressed.
Yeah, he does not have a depressive personality because he was very optimistic and positive, and sports was a big part of him, and curiosity. He taught, he knew a couple languages, so we were exchanging their knowledge of language in prison. I mean, everybody was political prisoners.
Right.
I met somebody who was about, 10, 12 years younger than him, who said he just was walking. He came out of Berkeley, again, another kind of left-leaning thing in the 70s, university. And he was in the same jail, and he's like, I'm walking and I see my niece's photos on this guy's wall, whatever wall they had. And I'm like, that's my niece. It's like, oh, that's my wife's niece. So he ended up being like my mom's second cousin that was in America for years, and my dad didn't know. So then he told us I would not have survived as a young, 20-something person if it wasn't for your father. So he was that kind of a personality, yeah.
Wow. Well, he eventually got out of there, and you eventually got out of Iran. And what did you study as an undergrad, and where?
So I studied math in college. Like in high school, we have to pick math or science for a pre-med route. Math would take you more into the engineering and this field of economics that's more analytical. So you wouldn't, if you had done social sciences, which was another route in high school, you couldn't have gotten into this program. So I was math, and then I got admitted into, it's a big entrance exam, very competitive. So it's kind of like you rank based on what you do at this massive 1-day long test. And I got into University of Tehran, which is one of the top universities in economics, so analytical economics. And I did my undergrad at University of Tehran. Then I got another entrance. I took another very competitive entrance exam and got into mainly universities graduate program, again, economics. And then something came up that I got access to applying for this grant, kind of like scholarship at Illinois State University near Chicago in Illinois. So
that took you there. Okay. I tell people when I talk about your work, Avisheh Mohsenin is the only artist I represent who has a professional day job that's not related to art. But you do show your art around the world. Your art has been exhibited around the world. And I would say you have a very unique message and you have a lot to say. And when I tell people that you're an economist, they can see it in the work because the work seems to be kind of mathematical and systematic. And let's talk a little bit about your work in general. What does it look like?
Thank you for that. I know somebody brought it up at the last show I had, which was a compliment, because I always thought I was more of I think in practice I have both sides of the brain working in career and my art career. And I always thought I was more art leaning, but then they brought in the math, like what you're saying. And it was like, oh, okay, the two sides are, the connection was made, which was pretty eye-opening.
Well,
it's
nice
to hear.
It's like an architect's brain. Right. You show both sides.
Ooh, architects are very fancy. I love that too.
They're just like your
I love
husband.
architecture
Yes,
too.
yes.
So yeah, I'm talking of the trajectory of what you study and how I ended up in the Chicagoland area. I also started working at the consulting firm, an economic consulting firm, where all these analytical, skills were at use, very real world issues, very smart people. And I still work at the same company, actually, 20 some years later. But there was something missing. I don't know what, because you're young, 20-some-year-old, and it's like, oh, this is it. Now I've done it. I studied and I have a job and everything is good. And I live downtown Chicago. But something was missing. So I bought a camera and thought, okay, I'll do some street photography. So from that start of just taking random photographs, my interest moved into not just documentary, but more things that were different, that looked different or a little bit more abstraction in them. Mm-hmm. So, for example, if there was a graffiti on a wall that was ripped off, let's say, in a city like New York or Chicago, you see a lot of that, it would really attract me. There was a painterly aspect to it. Then on paper, you could, look at it upside down, turn it around. It wasn't as defined or limiting. It was more open-ended, I think. It would make you ask more questions. So I really got attracted to, okay, I'm going to create photographs that entice questions or curiosity. Then I inherited a darkroom by a friend who was living in Chicago. And that also opened another valve of, I can manipulate this. I can put them in a different liquid, or I can, expose them to light and do stuff like that, like manipulating your images or paper to make it look different. So these kind of when I look back, are the stages that the work evolved. And from there, collage came into my world.
Yeah, collage photography. It's been in every show we've had.
Right.
Yeah.
So then collage gave me another opening of now using my hand. And it ended up also becoming more of a meditative because of the repetition and the thinking that goes into, is it this way, is it that way, how do I put it? And I needed that. I'm kind of high energy, agile. And it was the only time, and it still is the only time that everything else shuts down. I don't have to pick up my phone every 2 minutes or do something else. Yeah, vacillating between tasks.
The end result is like this really visually complicated image. And you're not quite sure what you're looking at. And I happen to be looking at a picture from the Playing Field show, and it's a bunch of photos of playground slides in repetition, each cut up and then layered on top of each other. And, I'll tell people when they're looking, would you have guessed you're looking at playground slides? And they always say, no, it just looks like this fascinating abstract image. So I want to mention real quick the last show, just because I'd love to mention all three. I'm not sure how we're going to do on time, but your last show with me happened to open the day we bombed Iran. That came as a big surprise. You gave me a text in the morning. I was in such a great mood. The show was looking great. I was getting ready to go to the opening at my own gallery, and I get out of the shower, and there's a text that says, "We're at war." And I wrote you back, "What?" And that's how I found out. And interestingly, you're a very popular artist, but you have quite a great following of the Iranian American community. And people still manage to come, even though it was this shocking thing that happened that day. And I love the fact that the gallery became this really safe space for the community to come and talk about our feelings and talk about feelings about America and Iran. And I love what art can do. And the other two shows I'll just mention really quickly. Playing Fields was a response to the pandemic. And your first show with me, can't think of the name. Resurface was about, your work, your pre-digitized photos, slides, and letters that were submerged in the Hurricane Harvey floodwaters. So all of them are of a very timely nature, very much speak to the moment that is now, but also aren't necessarily directly read that way without someone explaining to you the context in which they were made. You might not figure that out, but it's real sophisticated work. And I love every time the community's, involvement and response to your work.
Thank you so much. Yeah. In all of them, the common thread, I think, is make do with what you have and of not, have this exigency of going for something that's hard and then creating either resentment or lethargy or lack of creativity for not looking around you, like being in the moment, as you said, being in the moment, has been part of it. The last show was a lot about groundedness, finding your core back, coming back to your center, and how to do that. And then the elements that they were in it also kind of played a role to relay that. But yeah, I try to, as a person, try to be in the moment, get centered, and also use what you have. There's a lot you can do with anything.
Oh, I love that. Well, let people know where they can get a hold of you, your social media handles, your website, your Instagram. How can they find out more about what you do?
So I have a website that it doesn't have my latest show yet. I have to get around with it. It's Avisheh Mohsenin art.com. My first name followed by my last name.
You're going to have to spell it.
Yeah, spell it.
Oh, yeah. AVISHEHMOHSENIN art.com. I keep samples of the work. It's not everything. Heidi Vaughan Fine Art Gallery, my beloved gallery rep and art.
Yes, and I will say,
yes,
all the work,
she has stuff.
Work from all the shows is, you can see it all on my website and on Artsy. And Avisheh's work is always available through the gallery, no matter when the show was. Work is always available.
That's right. Yes, I'm on Instagram, but that's not just the art. I mean, people are more than happy to follow me, but they might see non-art related.
Family, kids, the whole,
some of that, less of that.
I want to just mention real quick that show, your last show, which incidentally was called Wait On, Wait Off, made Glass Tire's top 5. It was the first time one of my shows had made Glass Tire top 5 for actually some years. So I was very proud of that. And then Paper City was doing something on you around this body of work as well.
Right. Yes. They're working on an artist profiles. I believe Catherine Anspan's project. I do not know how many people will be profiled, but I will be one of them. And I'm very excited and honored.
And she's shown her art around the world. I don't know if I've mentioned that, but yes, she has.
Well, thank you for joining us on the Houston Hour. We're now going to break for some messages and come back with more of the Houston Hour on 90.1 KPFT Houston.
تو میخوام دور شم ازت نرفته برمیگردم من واسه داشتن تو هر کاری بوده کردم هرچی بشه از عشقمون زهره کم نمیشه هی میخوام از قشنگیات به کسی نگم نمیشه تو دارم در قلبم به روز بازه بفرما اگه انقدر دوستم داری بگو ننداز به فردا همین الان خوش باشین روزا بر نمیگرده تهشونی برنده است که با عشق زندگی کرده هیچ شبی مثل امشب انقدر قشنگ نیست تا تو نباشی عشقم جمع ما جمع نیست خودت خبر